Today I was in a very interesting session on fake news and real politics. It had some excellent panelists. In particular, two people stand out: Jimmy Wales, the founder of Wikipedia, and Joseph Kahn, the managing editor of the New York Times. And so obviously, after many discussions about, the whole what's fake news and why fake news is spreading and is it a new phenomenon or not, really the most interesting part to me, so then what can be done about it? And I think what emerged, here's my own take on what emerged, were four different types of solutions, or four different solutions. One solution is, of course, and that's Jimmy Wales' preference, which is what he's starting with Wiki Tribune, which is subscription-based space, so that you have citizen journalists, but also professional journalists, but you have curated content that consumers, users pay for. That's number one. The second model that emerged is the German model, which you really, in fact, have regulation-driven control of the spread of fake news by platforms. The third model that emerged is the one that Facebook, for instance, is now pursuing, which is to have users give trust ratings on the news that they see. In some sense, almost like the kind of ratings we see on Uber or Airbnb, that you give ratings, or to book reviews on Amazon. So users give trust ratings, and you know which news, let's say, to trust more, and you get fed, or you have access to more easily, more often, the more trusted news. And the fourth model that emerged is actually where the platform itself does the censoring, and that's where Twitter, for instance, has taken the lead in terms of taking down tweets that it believes violate its own codes of conduct. And obviously, these are four different mechanisms. But it was also interesting to see what the Americans on the panel preferred versus the non-Americans. And the Americans, both Jimmy Wales and Joe Kahn from New York Times, their preference clearly was not the government to regulate, because in fact, as Joseph Kahn rightly said, do we really want Vladimir Putin or Donald Trump to be regulating what content we should be able to see and what not? But their preference also was really not in terms of self-censoring, which is the Twitter approach, but actually to let reputation-based mechanisms, trust-based mechanisms, and subscription-based mechanisms. Surprise, surprise, New York Times talking about that, or Jimmy Wales talking about that, but really, in some sense, build market-based mechanisms that let the more trustworthy news to surface up and essentially crowd out the fake news.